Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning with Coffee with the Collection. My name is Hadley German, and I'm the Adkins curator here at the Fred Jones Jr. Museum of Art. And I'm filling in for our amazing host, Amanda Bain Garcia, who will be back in March for our next Coffee with the Collection. Before we get started, let's just go over a little bit of housekeeping. So all of you should be on mute right now, and I'd like to ask you to keep yourselves muted so we can hear our presenter without any distractions. But if you would like to make a comment or ask a question throughout the presentation, please feel free to do so using the chat feature. To open your chat, you'll want to scroll down to the bottom of your Zoom window and click on the icon that looks like a speech bubble, and it also says chat below. Once you click on the chat icon, a window will open to the side of your screen where you can type in questions and comments, but be sure to hit return so that we get your question. We'll circle back around to your questions and comments during the Q&A session at the end of our program this morning. In the meantime, I'd like to invite everybody to sit back, relax, and grab your favorite cup of coffee. Hopefully you have with you a roast created by our friends at Black Camel Coffee, who are offering a 20% discount to all attendees of this morning's program. And there should be a link to their website and to the discount code in the chat window. Well, without further delay, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our presenter for today, Grayson Wise. She's the recipient of the 2021 TG Mays Purchase Award for Student Art, and she will be discussing her piece, She's a Dreamer, Italian Remnants, that is now part of the museum's permanent collection. Grayson is both an artist and an art historian. She's a senior at the University of Oklahoma, pursuing a dual degree in art history and French with a minor in international studies. She will graduate this May, and she plans to continue her art history studies in graduate school. As you'll learn today, Grayson enjoys traveling, especially for art, and she's studied in Arezzo, Italy. Though her interests in art history tend to focus on politics and religion, her own artwork is varied. Her photography and mixed media works often address personal experiences with a dreamlike quality, which you can see here. Her digital media, however, is much more concerned with color and legibility and adopts a casual popular aesthetic. Now, before I hand the reins over to Grayson, I'd like to ask you all a question that you can answer by typing into the chat window. At the moment, many of us have returned to places of safety. We've limited our activities, and we've temporarily postponed traveling. I'd like you to take a moment, a pause, if you will, and allow yourself to daydream. Let your mind wander to a place you wish you could go to. Now, for anyone who feels comfortable, please share with us by typing into the chat, where would your daydreams take you? Where would you like to go? I'll give you a few moments to do that. No one's awake yet, I think. Kaylee says, inside the world of my favorite book. Oh, that's great. Greece, I agree with Ashton. Yeah, I'd love to go to Greece or back to Greece. Japan, the Heritage Gardens, the petroglyphs in Arizona. Oh, these are wonderful. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. It looks like many of you dream of going someplace else, further afield. And so like Grayson, I think this idea of traveling, or at least traveling through the written word, if not physically traveling, is something that we all kind of think a lot about right now. And so I'm going to actually let Grayson take it away now. It's time for her to share with us about her art and about where her mind has wandered over the past couple of years. And go ahead, Grayson.
Okay, hi everyone. So like she said, my name is Grayson, and I'm just gonna give a brief introduction about myself, even though she already did, just so you can get to know me just a little bit more. So, 1 second. Okay, I I am a senior studying art history and French, as she said, but my piece does concern Italy. So that's somewhere that I have a little bit more experience with in terms of study abroad and being able to put my own personal experiences in. I was actually supposed to go to France for a study abroad trip this winter, but because of COVID, that didn't happen. But hopefully in May, fingers crossed. But I also love watching art documentaries. I get up every morning, I have my breakfast, and I literally watch an art documentary. It's kind of goofy, but I definitely love doing that. I love collecting decks of cards. I find that that is really a good way for me to get something home, like whenever I'm traveling, and it's very easy for me to do so as well because they're pretty small. And I love card games and stuff. I don't know, it's just something I kind of picked up and started wanting to do. And then of course, I love traveling. I think it's a really great way to not only experience art, but also different cultures and to learn a lot about yourself and other people. Another thing too, I really like wine. So I kind of, maybe whenever I retire, I can become a sommelier or something like that. I think that would be really fun. Maybe I'll retire in Italy, who knows? But for my artwork, I'm a multimedia artist and I primarily work with toy cameras for my photography, though I am getting into some more digital stuff. I also do a lot of illustration, which is more digital, and then also just like a bunch of ink illustration and collage. I think these are really good ways for me to get this kind of dreamy quality to my work that's really attractive to me. But one thing, I really cannot paint. For as many times as I've tried to learn how to paint, it just does not work out for me. So not the place for me. As for my artwork though, I'm really inspired by my own experiences, but also the people that I meet, the places I've been, and just like little things, like again, the cards, or in this case for Italian Remnants, it's definitely something with postcards, and that's something I'll get into more. And I collect vintage postcards, and I think it's a good way, especially just to see other people's experiences within that whenever they've written these letters to people and things like that. So I really like looking at experiences to try and determine something for my artwork that's going to be compelling to other people as well. I'm also really inspired by color palettes in general. If something is attractive to me, I'm probably going to try and take that, or something very bold, or as you can see on the picture on the right, I like this very pastel, but very rich in color kind of palette. And I think that's something that makes that photo in particular very attractive. That was actually for a series I did for a wine magazine I did in class last semester. I'm also really inspired by media I consume, whether that's music or TV, or even just like scrolling on Instagram and seeing just like different artists and different art pieces I'm able to look at. I think that's a really good thing about social media, though, of course, there's always bad things too. But especially with my digital work, I'm really inspired by the TV I watch, because a lot of times I'll do things that are more inclined to, I guess it's kind of more commercialized, but we'll get into that later. And then finally, I'm inspired by myself, as this piece is very much an internal thing, and it's about my own experiences and just how I was feeling a lot during, especially the early times of COVID, and how it really affected me. And it's a good way for me to deal with my feelings and be able to put them out there in some way that's not just me thinking about it all the time. So let's get into it. So She's a Dreamer, Italian Remnants is the piece, like she said, it won last year the TGMA's Purchase Award, and I was so shocked whenever this happened. I remember we had just came from my OU ring ceremony, and we were trying to like rush into the museum to see it on the opening day, and I was standing there and someone was like, hey, like, have you looked at your piece yet? And I was like, yeah, like I'm seeing it, like we're walking over. They're like, no, maybe you should really look at it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I saw that it had been awarded that, and I was so in shock. I really never thought that was something that I would have won before. And I think that's something I've definitely been working through just as an artist, is finding a lot of value in my work. Again, a lot of it's very personal, so sometimes it feels like maybe it won't be as important to other people, or it won't be considered as something of fine art quality. And I think also being an art historian, that definitely plays a big part in that for me, just because like I'm usually critiquing art, or I am looking at these different qualities, and then trying to apply that to yourself can be very hard sometimes. But we've definitely been getting through that, and that's something that is really important for me during this piece. Also, like, I just wanted to talk about kind of what the piece means before we really get into it. But it's a piece on maladaptive daydreaming, which is something that I experience a lot. I feel like not as much anymore because I've really been able to come to terms, but I feel like whenever all of our classes and stuff were online, that was extremely hard for me because I was in my apartment 24/7. And not that I don't like being here with my cat and stuff, but it can be very hard to just take 18 hours of classes on Zoom, and then just feel like you're never off your computer, you're never going out into the sun, and you're not really able to experience the world. So I feel like turning back to a trip I had in 2019 to Italy, which is the main inspiration for this piece, was something I did a lot, and I was reliving that and just daydreaming, and I really was longing to go back, especially at the time that this was created. I was actually supposed to go spend half of a year in Italy and the other half in France, and that unfortunately just didn't happen because of the situation going on, of course, with COVID. So hopefully we will be able to get everything back up and running this summer, and that would be fantastic for other people to also be able to study abroad and get the same experiences that I did. Like I said, this piece, and these are definitely the best pictures to show the postcard-like qualities of it. I really love postcards. I actually have some of them that inspired me with me, but so they fold out, and I think that was really attractive to me because you can see like all of these different photos and stuff that are part of this one postcard that actually folds up. And the piece, if you were able to touch it, it does fold up, maybe not quite as nicely as the pieces of paper do, just because it is on cardboard. But yeah, you can actually fold it. And I thought that was a really interesting thing. It was very inspiring for me to try and do that because it was something that I had a lot of experience with, and it was also taking qualities from something that was a thing of the past. We don't really send a lot of postcards, especially postcards like that anymore. And I think it really plays upon this remnants part where I'm trying to go back to this place that I was, even though I'm obviously not there, and I was in Oklahoma at the time. Again, I use a toy camera, and I think you can see it a little bit better here, and I'll go into detail about the different illustrations and stuff, but I love toy cameras because there's so much uncertainty whenever you shoot with them. You honestly never know how it's going to turn out. I've definitely done rolls where there's maybe one good picture, just because, again, like there could be too many light leaks because toy cameras are plastic, and so they don't really have like a really strong backing or anything, and it definitely can be a problem. But other times it can turn out to be really beautiful, and I think these definitely are. There's a lot of haziness, a lot of there's a lack of detail in it, but I feel like that was especially attractive to me for this piece in particular, again playing upon this idea of a daydream and not actually being there. These photos were all taken in the Paseo district in Oklahoma City, and this one was taken in like some little alleyway. And my model in the picture, it was really interesting to also be able to work with her because she experiences some of the same type of daydreams as me as well. But yeah, I really wanted a messy look, and that's definitely something I wanted and achieved through the toy camera, but also with the illustration that I did. And all of the photos that you're going to see, they will have a photo beside them that is something that I actually took. And these are all from my trip in 2019, which was whenever it was the first time I went to Italy. So yeah, this one was in Arezzo, and it was just this little restaurant that I would pass by every day walking back up to the monastery in Arezzo, which is where OUA has their main campus and stuff. And I felt like it was just a really, even though I maybe never even ate in that restaurant, just seeing that and being able to have that part of like your daily commute there was really a beautiful thing for me. And I think that's part of the reason why I chose this picture, just because it does have a lot of personal and very really lovely feelings of just like peacefulness and calmness. So I really like that about this one in particular. Okay, so as you can see, that one is me on the right, and I am at the Spanish Steps in Rome. I love this picture. I feel like I'm just glowing. But again, I'd been in the Italian sun for like a month. But again, we're in the Paseo district here, and I had my model sit kind of on like a windowsill, and then you can see that I tried to build up the stairs from this photo and included one of the people that's on the left. It's almost impossible to get a clear photo on the Spanish Steps because there's so many people also trying to take photos. So just keep that in mind if you're ever going. That's about as clear as it will probably get. But yeah, another thing is just, again, I wanted these illustrations to look kind of messy and incomplete and just maybe like little splotches of color, since the photos were black and white, to signify that this is not a complete thing. She's not actually in Italy. She is obviously in Oklahoma City. And again, nothing's wrong with Oklahoma City. But I just thought it was a really nice juxtaposition between this idea of being in this Italian Tuscan countryside, whatever, or in Rome, where there's all this beautiful architecture and you can see these giant monuments and whatnot. I think just being able to apply that to somewhere that's very drastically different also adds a lot of feeling and emotion for that. But I also wanted these illustrations to pretty much take up the entirety of the page, so it feels almost overwhelming in the way that she's experiencing them. Maladaptive daydreaming is a little bit different than just regular daydreaming because you're much more invested and you're much more immersed in your own environment. And it can be very overwhelming at times, especially if you are dealing with a lot of emotions or you're not able to come to terms that you're not actually experiencing that. So that's part of the reason why she's very like encapsulated within the illustration on it. But again, it's very easy for the audience to see, or the viewer, that she's not actually there. And it's only just a portion of what she, or in my case, me, had experienced while being there. I also only wanted to use photos that I took in Italy in 2019. Again, because I hadn't been back. I went back this summer, but because I felt like it was a more authentic experience for myself to add those types of photos instead of finding things online, especially because I had been there before. The next one is my favorite picture in the piece. I don't know why, I just absolutely love this. I think it also has to do with maybe the movement that the model is giving to the piece. I remember that she was having trouble being able to just like balance on one leg. It was a very unstable little like platform that she was on. But again, with toy cameras, you kind of just let them expose and just let them be however they're gonna be. So you never know like how she would have turned out. And I love the way it did. And of course, this is the Trevi Fountain, as you can see. That was such a beautiful day. I think that's the same day that I had went to the Vatican, and I actually got to be blessed by the Pope. I just remember crying a lot, and I still consider that to be one of the best days of my life. And that was really just like a really beautiful experience. And I feel like to include something like the Trevi Fountain, which is very recognizable in terms of like Italy in that sense, but also being able to connect it to something that I experienced that was a life-changing moment for me, especially as someone that is Catholic. It was very life-changing seeing the Pope, you know. But I just thought that was a beautiful way for me to also be able to express that to people, even if they don't know necessarily. I think it's still a compelling part of the piece. Again, I love the blurry motion that she's giving. Again, you can see with the water and how messy the illustration is. And I feel like that's a very attractive part of that for me. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Okay, this, again, everything is in the Paseo district. This was at a storefront. And this is actually one of the first photos I took whenever I went to Italy. This is in Venice. And I just really wanted to include this photo in particular within my piece because I can remember being there in Italy, especially Venice, and just, I couldn't even believe I was there. It would have been something I dreamed of for a long time, especially as an art history major. Obviously, Italy is a place of extreme importance for Western art history. And I really just wanted to include something that was also another part of my trip that was extremely influential to me, because it was kind of the beginning of it. And I wanted to reference that. And as you can see, the model is looking into the storefront, and she is just like kind of going in, and she's trying to experience this restaurant or whatever it may be. She's trying to be involved, though she's really only looking at this place again in the Paseo. And I think that's a really powerful part of it. I just, again, the juxtaposition between the mundaneness of where she is at versus where she's daydreaming to be. And yeah, I love this one as well. But I definitely think this piece was really important for me, not only just as an artist and trying to explore something different with my photography, but also it helped me work through a lot, because I was experiencing like a lot of just a really hard semester at school, and I was experiencing just a lot of doubt, and I was very sad that I wasn't able to go study abroad for the year like I had hoped. And of course, everything happens for a reason, and I do not hold any kind of bad feelings or anything towards that. I'm very thankful for how things have turned out, and I've had a lot of really incredible opportunities to experience other things that are in Norman or throughout other places, or I would have never been able to go back this summer and experience a completely different set of things that I would have never been. I'm actually the study abroad intern for the President's Community Scholars. So also just being able to be able to give back to people for study abroad, and something I wouldn't have been able to do if I'd been to Italy, because it would have taken up a lot of my time. So in hindsight, I mean, there's a lot of really good things that also came from it. But yeah, I think this piece did help me work through a lot of those emotions, because at first I was very heartbroken. And it just felt like, especially with the uncertainty of COVID and just not like knowing if I would even be able to continue my art history education, maybe in grad school, like would I be able to go abroad, or would I be able to do this? And that was definitely, it just helped me put something out there so that I didn't feel quite so trapped by my own emotions. So yes, it's a very personal piece, but I think that people can definitely get something from it whenever they look at it. And maybe of course I'm biased because I made it, but I think that definitely it can be something that other people can experience, because like in the chat, and you guys all have these different places that you would like to go. I mean, we all dream of that, whether you're working a 9 to 5 or you're in school, or there's just other things that you wish you could do, but you feel restricted by other parts of your life, or maybe you have like a newborn and it's impossible to go do that kind of stuff. You're experiencing a completely different part of your life that is so beautiful and wonderful, but you still have that want and the desire to experience more. So I feel like this piece can definitely give that to people. And I think it's just, it was just definitely something that I'm very proud of. And again, I'm very honored to have won the TG Mays Burgess Award. And I really do hope that when people go look at this piece, they do experience something, and now like maybe you can experience something even more personal with it, and you can put it, maybe you were going to Greece and you can think about the same type of feelings that I had for this, which obviously is focused on Italy. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about the art that I'm creating right now and what I have been doing over the past like year, I guess. Oh, well, actually, hold on. I have a few more photos. I forgot that. But here's just a few more about where I was and stuff in Italy. And it's just, again, there's the Titus Arch, and then there is the birth of Venus as well. But yeah, so I can go into more detail if anyone has any questions about this afterwards. But again, I just wanted to include a lot of personal things. But yeah, my art now, sorry, is I'm still doing photography and a lot of toy camera stuff. And this is actually a work in progress, the photos you're seeing now. I'm hoping to expand it. I have 9 women for this project, but I'm hoping to get a lot more. And I haven't been extremely happy with how the presentation has been after I've printed photos or trying to frame them. So I'm still definitely working through that. But the title of this piece is Pop, and it has to do with women empowerment and basically just what it means to be a woman. So I'm really excited to see how that will turn out. So yeah, I'm definitely working on photography still, and it's something that I will probably always work on because I feel a really deep connection to it, simply because of I think it's a really beautiful way to show people and show experiences and just get a completely different take on things. Even if like you're not the best photographer in the world, I think there's still something to be said because there was something that caught your eye and you wanted to capture that. So yeah, I'm definitely still working on photography, but I'm also working a lot in ink right now, and just like ink drawing, which is something I've never really done before. I think I've, again, always doubted myself. And as you can see on the left, a very rudimentary piece that I'm not really sure what I want to do next with that, but it's something I find really therapeutic for me to also work through and be able to expand my art skills beyond illustration and photography and to experience something else. Another thing that I've also been working on since COVID started is the art cabinet. It's a publication that it's online, it's free, and I feature local artists, international artists, and I interview them, and I also talk about different art history pieces. This one is actually the cover of the last issue, which was in October. It's usually bi-monthly, but last semester, I unfortunately did not have time because of my finals and the amount of hours to release one in December. So we will be back in February, and there will be another art cabinet. You can definitely contact me if you have art that you want to have in there, or if you're also an art historian and you want to publish work, then yeah, go ahead. It's really casual. It's the whole point of it is to get people involved in the art world, which is really important to me as an art historian, in making art accessible to people so it doesn't feel so like snobby or like I can't understand that because I've never went to school for that. I feel like a lot of people do feel like that, and there's definitely no reason. So I really want the art cabinet to be something that everyone can experience, and it can be an easy way for you to just like get into the art world without feeling intimidated by it. I also publish within the art cabinet. There is a whole section that is only about exhibitions happening at local museums or museums in Texas. And then I'm from Arkansas, so I include the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art, as well as the Momentary in there. So yeah, that is definitely something I'm really passionate about, and I'm really excited to include that. And I also publish my own art in there every now and then, but it is something that within the art realm that I'm also working on. But the most recent thing I've been working on is my digital illustration, which I'm really excited to say that I do have an Etsy shop now for this stuff. It just started. I just got my Etsy shop completely ready on Tuesday, I think, and I've already sold a lot of things. So it's really great because, especially with my illustration, I want art to be, again, accessible to people, and it to be compelling in a way that, even if this is a more commercially produced thing where I'm taking these famous museums or the Fred, and I'm reworking different prints or different posters for them, and I'm getting people involved in some way for the art world, and I'm allowing them to take art, and it's, again, accessible because the prints are not expensive, for people to be able to add that to their life. And again, as an art historian and an artist, it's very important to me to make the art world something that everyone can experience, whether it be with something that's completely unique, like Italian Remnants, where there's never going to be another one like that, or something where I can more mass produce it and make it available for all other people. And again, I'm really inspired by color palettes, especially with my digital illustration. As you can probably see here, I like taking like really interesting things and maybe even complementary colors and stuff, and really working with those colors to create something that is simple, but also very vibrant and interesting for people to look at. And I wanted to include some more typographic elements to my digital art, because I've been in a typography class for the past 2 semesters and I loved it, and it's really been like a really wonderful thing for me to also include, especially whenever a big goal of mine for my digital work is to make art that, again, is very accessible to other people. Some of the other stuff that I've also been working on, and you can buy this from my Etsy shop, is, like I said, I'm really inspired a lot by different media I also ingest. That's not always maybe art related, but like the two posters on the left, Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan, are both animes that I really enjoy. And I think that's a good way also to put myself out there for maybe the more common public to get involved with something and supporting other artists and things, because I'm making pieces that are more compelling or more familiar to them. And I think any of this stuff, though it may be more, again, commercially produced and based off of different artists, but also making it your own style, I think it's still a good way for people to get involved with things that are different than what they maybe would have before. And I think that's something I'm really excited about. I'm really proud of these works as well. Again, I draw everything on my iPad, and I take references from any shows, but I create them in my own style so that it can still be my work, but be something that is, again, compelling to somebody, even if it's just, hey, I really like that show, maybe I'll buy this. And I think it's a good way to be involved with other people, and again, not make art so scary for people to get involved in and stuff. So yeah, it's still definitely, I'm still adding stuff to my Etsy shop, and I hope to add more. But if you guys have any suggestions for stuff that you'd like to buy, I'd definitely be interested in hearing them, and also seeing what people are interested in buying. I plan to make more art museum prints and some more different shows, and then different things, different characters like you can see on the right, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's a really cool way for me to be involved in my own illustration and also pop culture that is happening at this time. And yeah, so finally, I just wanted to end with a few more of my works. As you can see, this is the Feetsy, and I have vessels that are actually, you can buy those as stickers on my shop, but it is open and you can experience that. And I'm really happy to be here and to show you just a little bit of what I've been working on. You can also follow my art Instagram. It's Grayson Wise art. And I definitely post like a lot of stuff on there, and you can see different things, not just illustration, but also different photography I'm working on. And yeah, so I'm just really, really excited about how I've been able to grow as an artist in the past 2 years. And it's been something that's been a very personal experience for me, obviously, and I'm just really excited with everything that's been happening. So thank you. That's all I have. So
Thank you, Grayson. That was terrific. It was really a treat to learn more, not just about your work in general, but about this, the piece that is now in the museum's collection. I think that your talk just made me love it even more. So we're going to show everyone where it is, because it's currently on view. So it's very close to the front entrance. And so if you walk in the front door, and then actually that was looking back towards the front entrance. So you're going to turn to your left after you walk past the Hepworth sculpture, and you'll go into, this used to be called the Orientation Gallery. Well, it's still the Orientation Gallery, but we've been using it for new acquisitions or recent acquisitions. And it's a kind of round space to the left of the main entrance, or the main hallway. And I think this is nice. It gives you a sense of scale. But we hope you'll come and see it. Come and see Grayson's piece in person. And I think this is a good time for any of you who have questions for Grayson to go ahead and type them into the chat. We have some time for her to take your comments and questions. And I guess I'll start, I'll read. Carmen McBride said, "Thank you, Grayson. What a wonderful presentation. Enjoyed hearing about and seeing your artistic journey. And she especially loves your juxtaposition between Italian travel and the Paseo photos and added sketching." Oh, that's a very nice comment. Thank you.
Thank you. It means a lot. It definitely means a lot.
Well, I'll let everyone else take a moment and type their questions. But in the meantime, I have some questions for you, Grayson. Could you talk a little bit about the toy camera and when you started using a toy camera? And so I understand this is what you're still using in your work now. And is that film? Is it digital?
Okay. Yes. So I actually have 2 toy cameras now. The one that I shot with is my panorama camera. So it's quite long, and I only use Holgas. they're literally like $20 to $30. They're so cheap, but yeah, they're film cameras, and you can use 120 film. I use usually like a Portra 400 or something like that. I started using one I got it in 2019 at the very end of it, but I really started to shoot with it in 2020. And I actually did work called Pardon My French, and I showed that in the museum for the student exhibition as well. And it was the first time I'd ever used my toy camera, so I legit had no clue what I was doing. It felt like, again, very experimental. And I actually shot these photos in the Oklahoma City underground, and that was really interesting because my models a little background on the piece actually, it was Marie Antoinette and Louis the 16th. And so those were like the two models that I had, but I had them wearing work that I had sewed myself by hand, and I'd been taking thrifted items. And so it was kind of like a satirical piece on basically just the France during that time, and this idea of this luxury and whatnot happening from these thrifted items that I found like at Goodwill or something like that. And so I just thought that would be really fun. I'm really interested in that kind of art. So I loved doing that. But again, I shot it in the underground, and I knew that with a toy camera, sometimes your exposure times are extremely long, especially if you're using a pinhole one, which is what I use for my panorama one. And I just remember whenever my models got down there, I was like, so I think you guys are actually going to be standing here for like 8 minutes, maybe. So like, don't do anything too crazy, because like obviously you want to be able to hold it. But that was a really interesting time. And then whenever those pictures came back, and they actually turned out really well, I just fell in love with it even more, and I wanted to keep using it. I now have another one that's just like a regular Holga, and it also uses 120 film, but it takes everything in a square format. Mm-hmm. And that one is like an actual like clicking kind of camera, so you don't have to wait quite as long for exposure times, maybe at most like 3 to 4 seconds if you're shooting indoors. And everything again is plastic, even the lens, so there's always this hazy quality, because of course, I mean, you can never get anything perfect with a camera that costs $20. So yeah, I love using them, and I think they're really interesting for people you maybe aren't even interested, or they don't really know how to get interested in photography, or don't want to invest a lot. It's a good way to just explore something that's very different, and your photos will always look different too. So yeah, you never know.
Do you develop the film, or do you?
I take that to someone else. I have not learned how to develop yet. I would love to learn, but yeah, I used to take it to Bedford's in Oklahoma City, and also there's one in Fort Smith, but I heard they're closing. So I'm very devastated, and I don't know what I'll do yet. So we'll see. I guess it's time for me to learn how to develop, actually.
In all your spare time.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, Kaylee asked if you can talk about the use of cardboard in this particular piece.
Okay.
And if she says, is that a typical way to save postcards? But you used cardboard in the other piece too, in the Switzerland piece.
Yes, I did. So I have a lot of cardboard from just like different packages and stuff I buy, and I always feel bad if I have to throw it away, or I mean, even recycling it, but I try to find different ways that I can use stuff. And I'm big on making art that, again, seems accessible to people. So using materials that maybe aren't the most expensive or like the best in the world. Again, my camera literally costs $20. And so I think cardboard was a way for me to just kind of use something that I felt like would also be sturdy and whatnot. But within the piece, I thought it actually worked really well, because I thought it helped with kind of this feeling of the daydreaming qualities, where she's not actually experiencing this, and cardboard's a very like, I literally tore the cardboard, or I couldn't find my X-Acto knife whenever I was cutting it out. So I just had like a pair of scissors, and I was like ripping it through on my apartment floor. So, but it gave it a really raw quality that I really liked. And I think it also helps with that juxtaposition between the beauty of Italy and like the magic that I experienced there, versus the reality that I was living in my head at that time. So yeah, that's definitely the main use of it, but also to just kind of save material and be able to use something that I already had. as well.
Well, it makes me think of that one photograph in the series where there's like a dumpster,
Mhm.
and it might have been the same photograph where the name of the business behind that the model was standing in front of was Eden, and so that
Yes.
juxtaposition is like not just in the images but in the piece itself, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see, we've got some more questions. Catherine wants to know, when do you do the drawing on the photos? Do you use white ink?
Okay, so for that, when I got my photos developed, I wanted digital copies first. And so that's whenever I used my iPad. And so all of that is digitally drawn with like white ink. So it was a lot easier for me to be able to do that and then be able to print them out and it not maybe mess up something with the way that the photos were printed and whatnot. So if you go into the museum, you can see that it's like straight up just like printed on there with it. But yeah, I did that after I got the film developed, and I never really had any kind of plan with what I was going to do with it. I knew obviously I wanted to use Italian photos, but I didn't really know which ones I was going to use. And so I kind of just waited for the pictures to come back and then tried to figure out what I thought spoke to it the most and with what picture. So yeah.
You scanned the photo and then you drew on it in your on your iPad. Yeah. And then Leslie asked a related question. Would you talk a bit more about creating using an iPad? How would someone get started doing that?
Okay. It's pretty easy actually. If you have an iPad that has like, I actually have mine right here, but like one of the Apple Pencils and stuff. I know a lot of people use Procreate, which I think it's maybe $10 on the App Store, which is a really good price. I actually use Adobe Fresco though, because I have like an Adobe Suite subscription because I use InDesign and Illustrator all the time for other stuff. But it's really nice if you work within the Adobe Suite and you use the other ones because you're able to directly transfer that stuff and you get the best quality. But definitely just like picking up your stuff and going for it, even if you're tracing it, like maybe you want to draw people and you're tracing over that just to try and get like an idea of how to start. That was something that I did until I was like really comfortable with my own skill and understanding that I was not going to be someone that could like draw or paint a face like exactly perfectly. And I definitely have like a really quirky way of drawing people, but yeah, definitely just like trust yourself on that. And it's pretty easy. It's really fun. It's also nice because if you mess up, you can just click the undo button. You can do a lot of different layers. I love working in layers because if something messes up, then I can just fix it again. So yeah, definitely a good way to get there.
Well, Amanda and Karen had asked me if you could talk a little bit about your models. And we wonder if they're in the meeting today, or if you might share who they are and how you work with them.
Okay, I don't think my model is in the meeting today, but her name is Weston, and I've known her since freshman year. And I basically usually just put out on Instagram or I message people and I just ask them, I'm like, hey, do you want to do this thing for me and be like a model? And so she really wanted to do it. And again, I wanted people that, I only used one model for this and it was her, but I wanted someone that also maybe experienced this type of daydreaming just because I felt like it would be more connecting to her. But for pardon your French, I just used two of my friends. It was Jacob Rivera and Jada Phelps, that I just wanted them to be able to, they just were really eager to be a part of it. And so then I just let them, and I basically let everything, if there's a certain pose that they want to do or they feel connected to something, I let them decide a lot of that because I feel like for my photography, I like it to be pretty authentic for people. And if it's something that they feel really compelled to do or something like that, then I would rather them be able to do that than me forcing them. And that was something I've been working a lot with Pop. I shoot all of those photos in my apartment. I have like a whole like a backdrop thing and stuff. And basically I tell the women to come in and I say, just wear something that you're completely confident in. And if you have other items that you think represent you, then also bring those in as well. As you can see, my friend Talon, she was on the left, and she had brought in like different things that represented part of her culture, and then also her side in environmental sustainability and things like that. And so that was really cool to be able to work with a bunch of different women that had like completely different things. And I let them choose all of their poses that felt them be the most confident. One girl also brought in like workout gear because she's really into like working out and stuff. And it's been like she was telling me about how it was like a really big journey for her within her own self. And I felt like that was really interesting to be able to learn about just different things that maybe those women are going through or being able to do whatever. So I definitely leave a lot of my models' choices up to them, just because I want them to be a big part of the piece as well, instead of it just feeling like they're more of a prop. I want them to actually be like really involved with it. So yeah, I usually just ask people if they want to be in anything, and then they will usually say yes. So that's fun.
So those photographs that you made in your apartment, so that's also with a toy camera?
Yes.
And then,
I actually took some digital, but those were with the toy camera. So the one on the right that had, her name is Aria, and I love her. She's so cool. She always comes in, if she takes a lot of photos with me. And so she always comes in knowing stuff that she wants to do. We did a triple exposure on that, which was really interesting to work with with a toy camera, because I mean, it's just like really hard, but trying to get the idea of her having the 6 arms was really cool, and also very scary working with that because we didn't know how it was going to turn out.
I wondered about that. So, I mean, I think it's even more impressive to know that you did that it's a triple exposure. And I thought maybe you had done it in Photoshop or something.
No, triple exposure.
Wow.
But yeah, so we were, again, very worried about how that one would turn out, but it was awesome when it did. So yeah.
So I have to ask, I mean, art historian, art history, art making, where do you see yourself going in the future? Is this always going to be something you're going to try to, you're going to do both, and it's tricky, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. I feel like, especially whenever this semester starts, obviously as it has and stuff, it's really hard for me to be able to dedicate a lot more time to my art making, but I'm really making it a point to do so this semester. I do think it's something that I see myself doing throughout throughout my life and throughout my career. But my main thing will probably always be art history, just because I feel like that's where my calling is. But definitely whether or not my art simply becomes something that is more commercial for people, like through my Etsy or through social media, it's something I'll definitely always keep up. And then I'll always be working on different things on the side, like how pop is definitely more something that I consider to be more on my fine art side, if you want to call it that. But and just even if it doesn't really get shown anywhere, I think it's just important for me to keep up that artistic practice, because it's definitely a form of therapy for me. I feel like, to try and just get away from school or different things like that. But yeah, my next step is definitely, it's grad school. I've been applying for places, and so hopefully we'll see where that ends up, and I can pursue that as a career. Pretty open on how I want to do that, but just kind of see where I've been called and where I am led to. So I think a big part of that will also be if I get accepted into one of the grad schools I'm applying to, and seeing where that will take me as well. But,
well, it seems like your art history informs your art. I mean, in the most basic level in terms of traveling, but also I'm wondering if there are other ways that you know, what you're learning in the classroom informs what you're doing as an artist.
I think it does, for sure. Again, I think sometimes it's a double-edged sword. It's really good sometimes because I'm learning about different processes or just like ideas of how to produce certain types of art. But I think also it's a way for me to sometimes be too critical of myself and of my art, just because, again, I'm seeing all of these incredible artists for different things that from artists that were extremely successful. And I feel like I don't see a lot of that in my own work. And it can be very, again, just very self-critical about that. So it's definitely something I've been working through and coming to terms that, like, I'm never going to be able to paint, and that's fine. But I think sometimes whenever you learn about that stuff, it's really difficult at times to kind of take yourself out of that historian perspective of what's good and what's considered good versus like living in this particular time period and just creating something that I like and that I feel proud of. So yeah, double-edged sword for sure.
It's like knowing you have those value judgments built in a sense,
Yes.
and to apply that to. Well,
Yeah.
I think you're doing great work, and it's very thoughtful, and you shouldn't give up.
Well, thank you.
If anyone else has a question, I'd encourage you to type it. I think we're getting close to time. You've got some great comments, Grayson. It seems like, let's see, Catherine said that thanks you for the informative and inspiring talk and for your project with women's empowerment.
Thank you. I'm excited to see how that works out too.
Yeah. No, me too. And so you're a senior, so I guess
Yes.
you won't be able to submit to the student show
no.
later after this year.
Yeah.
But we'll look forward to following your career, I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, well, since it looks like we're out of questions, I think it's time for us to wrap up, and I hope all of you will go and take a look at Grayson's piece in person in the orientation gallery. It's a work on paper, so it won't be up forever. We have to rotate those to protect them from the light, so be sure and take a look at it as soon as you can this spring. Thank you for joining us this morning, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Don't forget to mark your calendars for the next Coffee with the Collection, which will take place on Friday, March 11th at 9:30 a.m. And there should be a link in the chat window to register, but you can also find the registration page on our website. And I have to promise, I think it's going to be fantastic. Our host, Amanda Bame Garcia, will be back to chat with Marielle Hoffenagels, who is the interim chair of microbiology and plant biology at OU. Marielle will discuss photographer Patrick Nagatani's series, Nuclear Enchantment, and her experience introducing OU biology students to his photography here in the museum. And we hope to see you all in March for that exciting conversation. Exhibition before it comes down. Another exhibition I would be remiss if I didn't mention is the student exhibition. So this year's student exhibition, the 108th annual student show, opens to the public next Thursday, January 27th, and it will be up through mid-March. I got to see a sneak peek yesterday, and I can promise there's a lot of variety of work, and it's interesting work that's by Grayson's classmates here at the OU School of Visual Arts. We hope to have a closing event, a celebration in March, so stay tuned for the date of that event on our website and in our e-newsletter. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you especially to Grayson for sharing your time and your really thoughtful discussion of this piece with us. It's really been a treat. So everybody stay safe, and we hope you have a wonderfully creative weekend. Thank you so much.